Hylissang's on his own page is doing his own thing. I mean, there's the whole chicken on the skateboard thing, right? But now we're not scoring points because he's doing tricks. We need you to lay eggs, right? And Hylissang's just his dad doing a triple. His dad doing the triple flip. His dad doing the reverse 180, but he's not laying any eggs. And that's what they really need him to do right now. He needs to go and pair up with Elioya and lay some eggs. Right?
No, he's laying some eggs. It's just in the kill and assist column. That's where the eggs are.
There you go. Right, this is going to be another episode of the Best Damn League show, period. And our guest for this one is a return guest. He was on a past episode. It is Jensen Goh. That's right. AKA, there's two different ways you can think of Jensen. You can think of him as less obnoxious Nelson. That's one. Although, you notice that I didn't go like, sort of like more magnanimous. I just like less obnoxious. Like, we don't dislike anything about Nelson. He's just very obnoxious, isn't he? He just has that blunt way of like, I mean, the problem is he's on like that Pi May shit of sort of like, I know all the knowledge about the game. You are all fools. It's like, okay. I mean, it's one angle to take, but fucking hell, can anyone else get in here? It's like, no, only I know how to run Excel. No one else. No, whatever. We won't do that whole thing. Listen, it's okay, Nelson. I'll give you a pass there, mate. Because let's be real, everyone else passed on you, so why not just, that's the trend now, right? So the other version, though, the other angle is, you could also think of Jensen here as the analyst that no one asks to be on the show, but I just ram down your throats anyway every time there's an available guest spot, because essentially, and this is true, I've actually told him this before, I actually think he's underrated, because what I like is, I like people who have a totally coherent style of how they analyze. I call it like lenses or models, and what I try to do is, like, I like to look through other people's model, like, how does LS see it? Like, I've always told people this story. Whenever anyone else gets mad at LS, like, oh, he's doing some story now about how, like, the law of Street Fighter is about how people compete. I'm like, shut the fuck up, let him cook. I was the original Let Him Cook, mate. It was just me and LS out in the fucking Sedona desert or something on LSD and peyote coming up. And then he's just about to say some amazing shit about fucking Ryu's backstory, and you're all like, what's this got to do with the league? It's like, Jamal, shut the fuck up, let him cook. And tell you what, I do let him cook. So Jensen here, I've told you the story in the past. He did actually predict that EDG would win Worlds, or at least showed how it's possible. So we're going to see on this episode where he's at on Europe, because actually, I think this is probably one of the most interesting times ever, Jensen, if we're going to apply your analytical lens to how the teams operate. Because in Europe right now, first of all, it's been really exciting, the turnover of teams that are near the top. And then with teams like, obviously, like BDS is one we're going to talk about a lot in this episode. Who the fuck ever thought this team would be this good? Like, they're in a really strong position right now, and it's looking like super, like there's a world where, look, they'd have to win the split, which we'll get to it later, but unfortunately this episode will be dogged a little bit, guys, by what Dom told us like 3 weeks ago, which is the championship point angle actually low-key ruins this like whole group section, because you can't just look at each result in isolation like, wow, great win, because it's basically about who gets to go along with G2 to MSI. Maybe we'll address that very quickly, Dom. Isn't that basically one of the things, don't you agree? Doesn't that sort of bomb you out? Because every time I look at the result, like, I enjoy it, but then when I look at the bigger picture, it's like, oh, fuck, wait, does that mean Mad Lions or Koi goes now? I keep having to check that. I'm so scared that those are the other teams,
I feel like that's the worst part of this type of format, is that if you really care about what the results mean, you have to constantly be looking at the championship points angle and be like, okay, so if Koi gets third and G2 wins, that means that they go unless Mad Lions gets fourth. Like, it's just some really weird like logic you have to do like that. But before we get into the nitty gritty, I mean, I just want to throw out there that I originally suggested Bjergsen Go as the guest for the show, but Thorin just kept on telling me that Jensen Goh was better, so I guess we have to go with this here.
Not bad. That wasn't bad. You know, one thing that's sad, I actually realized this. I always thought puns were just like the easiest shit ever, but they do actually like impress the Zoomer audience way too much, man. They all think, oh my God. I mean, remember, they've never cracked the fucking book open. That's why it's actually hilarious as a random other detail that Jensen here wrote a real book in real life, which is, by the way, quaint as fuck. Like, I love the idea, but I don't know about the idea any kid online it's like buying a book, like reading, like the whole thing's like TSM. There's a reason why TSM's the biggest site ever, because it's just some dickhead website like, wow, Rick, just build shit on it. Like, oh, thanks, Reggie. Like, and then every fucking kid they think it's like a Pokedex or something, mate. So there's no way anyone's buying a book. And then also, I will just throw out there, Jensen, I wanted to buy your book. I was like, please take my money, like that meme. And then the only problem is that whole website thing money isn't working, so you got to manually send you the money, and then you physically send me the book. Like this, it's the thing. All the best will in the world, that doesn't work. That doesn't scale. Does like you can't send out 100,000. But okay, let's bring it back. Here's the first place we need to start. Let's actually start with BDS. I think it's actually the most fun team to talk about at the moment, because the problem I have is this, Jensen. It's not at all that like I'll watch them in the. Here's the thing we do on the show as well, because they stupidly named the season. The split is like season is the part of the BO1s, then groups is the BO3s, and BO5 is the playoff. Just call it BO5s or BO1s. It's probably easier for this section, right? So when we were in the BO1s part, it's not that I didn't believe in BDS. It looked great. In fact, they could have even won some of the games they lost in that particular phase, originally almost like gone undefeated. The problem is you just expect experience level of the players. They obviously have a couple of fucking weird mistakes every now and then each game that could throw the whole game. People would just expect, as you increase the number of games, and especially like the more pressure, then they should be the team that falls apart, but they haven't. So what is your take on BDS? They're just legit at this point, Miss. How are they so good?
I think there's a few things that we can look at over here, and one of the big trends I want to visit today is I had a war on tempo a few years ago, right? Today I'm gonna go to war against this concept of strong side, right? I'm not trying to eliminate the word completely, because I still think it's very useful in terms of how we describe things. But I think that people still talk about strong side in this modern day narrative in terms of like, oh, is this the guy we play towards? And it makes sense narratively. But if you look at the map control idea of the game, where people are playing a lot more on 2 lanes and things like that, it's not so much about who's a strong side player and a weak side player. The question is, how do we create a strong side of the map? And I think that that is why I enjoyed watching LEC so much this year, because you're seeing all these different ideas in terms of different philosophies and different setups in terms of how do we move on the map. Do we move out through side lane? Do we move out through mid? Is it about connecting the jungle and support? How tightly is the support and jungle connected? Or is it more of the 1-2 system that we saw a lot from Korea in the previous year as well? So BDS, I think this is team that I think was very well coached in terms of tactics wise, right? And I'm going to draw a football analogy over here, and people are going to wonder, oh, are you going to talk about Barcelona, Juventus, or one of those big teams? No, I'm actually not going to talk about one of those big teams, because BDS is not a big team. I'm going to talk about Brighton, right? This is a team in the EPL that nobody, if you're outside of England itself, right? If you're outside of the UK itself, you probably have never really heard about this team. It's like in a footnote. Okay, Liverpool. In fact, Liverpool actually lost to this team twice this year. But the point is that this is a team that doesn't really have a star set of players, but they were using a very interesting tactical setup where they were just playing really slowly in the build-up of the play, and they were calling it defenders with starts on top of the ball, right? Which is something that's very unconventional in football, and they were using it to buy space and create space, so that they could use the tactics to do the work for them, so that their quality of players would not be as challenged as much in the more forward positions itself. And to bring things back into League of Legends context,
I'm definitely interested to see how you're going to explain that BDS players aren't challenged. But then again, enough about their social media. Continue.
Yeah, that's the idea as well, right? Where BDS is using all.
We'll be doing that every now and then, guys.
And
if you've never seen one of our shows before, just keep going. Just keep up. Go on, Jensen. Keep going.
And BDS is using all of these tactical brilliancies to overcome for some of these issues, right? Like when they play against Koi in the series, Koi, I think this is a team that they have to really create a lot of pressure. The bot lane, Trimby has definitely been the MVP for them this split so far. And if Trimby and Comp, they play up with power to create a lot of pressure in bot lane by winning a bot lane 2v2, then they're able to then influence the game. So what do? They sack Adam's first TP, they let Adam fall a little bit behind, they do the silent strategy with the double jungle once again, and then there's all this pressure, right? It's one of those very classic bring out the coaching book of dark arts, look through it and I say, hey, okay, there's this interesting silver bullets, and these are the ways that we can solve towards that. And I think the BDS, they have a very clear team identity. We play for Prio and bot lane. We're going to use that to then achieve the a Drake stacking win condition, and then they understand their team fight conditions around the dragon pretty well as well. So I don't have a lot of major complaints when it comes to BDS. We can talk. I think there's like 1 or 2 fatal flaws that if this is a team that somehow goes to an international event, right? So I thought they actually had a decent chance of doing it. But if the championship points requires them to be in first place and things like that, then it's a little bit of a shame, because I'd really like to see how this team would fare against the international competition, right? This is back in the day. I wouldn't say back in it, like 2-3 years back, when all the LPL teams were super idiosyncratic, right? The LPL teams are still kind of idiosyncratic, but there's a little bit more of amalgamation these days. But when you had like TES was very distinctly TES. The DoNB team was very distinctly a DoNB style, and the rookie team was a very distinctly rookie style team. And and it was always so interesting to see which of these teams would go up and play against international competition. I was hoping we would see the same thing at BDS as well, and see how well these Korean teams, see how well the LPL teams, or even the NA teams, right, how well they would adapt to all these shenanigans that they can bring out.
Comment on where you are on BDS. Like, they actually had the truth now, aren't they? Like, we can't really deny it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're doing a lot better than I expected. I mean, one of the things that I was predicting in best of series is that Adam would be worse, and I think that that's actually happened, but the rest of the team is just compensating. I feel like all the strength that Adam had somehow just went to Nuck, and now Nuck is just performing like he's one of the best mid laners in the league. I don't actually believe he's one of the best mid laners in the league. That's why I always say performing.
I know.
Because Sheo and Nuck, I mean, if you just look at the way they play the game, they might be the best mid jungle that we've seen so far. But do I actually believe that they're that good at their core? Like, do I think that, in 3 splits, Nuck is going to be better than Caps, and like we're going to just be in like the Nuck era? I mean, I don't know. I just refuse to believe that I'm going to have to keep on saying Nuck for 900 days or some shit and praising him. So that's one thing that I think BDS has kind of struggled with, is their top lane champion pools. I mean, they seem pretty much exposed. I mean, the Olaf game was probably Adam's best game this weekend. He got solo killed in that one. Then he actually got a solo kill back, so he stabilized in that one. But I thought the Darius pick was just terrible. Like, the Darius pick into Olaf, or into Gnar, sorry. I think that this is just a really weird angle. I don't think you ever want to play Darius if Gnar is up. In the modern era, at least with the current items, like maybe when you had old Stridebreaker where you had that mini dash, that was a way that you could play this matchup. But I think that the way that they draft champions is really surprising top lane. It's almost like they just have like a notepad that says, if Olaf's up, we draft Olaf. If not, we go Darius. If not, we go Set. If Set is bad for the game, we go Renekton. If Renekton is bad, we go Malphite. If all of those don't look good, we go Sion. And it's just, they go through that. Maybe they get a fucking Jarvan counter pick that looks like he's first time get in the game. But I feel like that's a very concerning trend, because I don't think that they're actually picking things that are coherent in the game. A lot of times I just see like Adam getting one of his champions, and it's like he doesn't, I guess in these games, he doesn't need to perform for them to win. But I just doubt that Sheo's going to be like 10-0 on Vi consistently enough where you're not going to need to, like, you're essentially able to get away with the game 4v5. So that's an issue I see with BDS. And then also, they are falling behind in gold. I mean, they're winning these games because they have such insane dragon control. I think they were like 16-0 on drags or something like absolutely absurd in the 4 games they played. But it's not always possible to just get dragon all the time. Like, if teams draft in certain ways, and especially with the way that they prioritize their champs, I just don't think that it's a consistently viable condition. And obviously, in a lot of these games, they're able to get soul, and that kind of compensates for the gold that they are down in the game, and they end up winning anyway. But yeah, I just feel like there's still some weird aspects of BDS where you just feel like this is exploitable, like this type of playstyle is just not consistent. And then also, I would like to see if teams tried banning out Sheo if he had a viable champion pool outside of the Vi, the Sejuani, the Wukong. I think he's really good on these picks. He doesn't strike me as the type of jungler that would be able to just play everything all the time. For example, if we see like Sheo Lee Sin come out, is he going to be able to perform as like one of the best junglers in the league on Lee Sin compared to Bo or some of the other people that we have still in contention here? So I need to see more. I have to see when teams draft differently against them, because I feel like this is one of the things that will happen. With Adam playing a little bit worse, and with people becoming more confident in being able to play counters instead of it just being like, oh no, you can't give him Olaf or Darius, he'll win every game no matter what. I felt like that was a little bit of an overreaction, where now we're starting to meet somewhere in the middle where it's like, no, I mean, if he wants to play Olaf into Kennen like every game or some shit, just let him play Olaf into Kennen. Just play fucking Kennen and just like win the game. Play Gnar into these matchups, and just don't let him take those free solo kill angles, or don't let him like flash on you and get a free kill in the lane phase, and you'll just be able to outpace. So I think the teams will adapt how they view BDS after these series of games, because before I think Adam was a focal point, where now I think people are going to focus more on Sheo's champion pool, and they'll also focus on ways to limit the bot lane, because I feel like the bot lane is the most legit part of BDS.
Oh, easily. In fact, I even think To be fair, I probably don't even give props enough to Labrov. It's not even that he's been like out of this world, but he's been pretty consistently good. Like I very rarely notice games where I'm like, what the hell's he doing? Like,
I mean, he had a terrible Renata game this week where like he almost solo ruined the game. I mean, he queued and he tried to pull it and then he ulted backwards and then suddenly like the whole game exploded when they had massive control. So that was rough. I mean, I think the way that he conceptualizes Renata ults scares me. It seems like when you look at Renata, I mean, you just have to, Renata and Nami, you have to just throw these abilities that are relatively slow traveling at positions on the map to force people to not walk through like these chokes. Like, I mean, it's what we said earlier. It's like these abilities are almost made for certain sections of the map. If you look at like the width of entrances into River or the width of the path behind blue buff, these are perfect locations to be throwing Renata. And you see him use it like almost like he's trying to hit a skill shot where he positions it where the center of the ult is on the center of the enemy champion he's aiming for, instead of just like ulting a corridor and making them choose, oh, either you walk into the ult or you have to choose to walk into our team and die. I feel like these are like some issues that I'm seeing with the Brav, but I would say that Crowny just looks insanely legit. I mean, he just looks like either the best or the second best AD carry in the entire league.
Yeah. No, the key thing for me is not only does he almost every single week just play really, really well as well, but they actually as a team obviously understand their identity, like they played to him. So I think they just do a great job. Like the funny thing is, every single thing that sounds like a knock on this team is essentially just like what you're supposed to do as a professional. Like they look like they have a decent read on, well, they're very good at one point, read on the meta. Whether they can execute it's the other question probably on that one. But like, that's the problem with the whole Qian Nook thing, Dom, is even though people are going to think it's haterism, I not only can't get past it, I won't get past it. And this is the problem.
I mean, his name is fucking Nuck. Like, come on.
Like, that's not great itself.
Nuck.
I know.
Like,
and also, if you don't want to be called Nuck, don't go around saying stuff about how you're going to suck. That was literally your whole angle. Like, you're playing into that, isn't it? So here's the problem, right? Like, if people saw the tweet that these guys got triggered by, it's so
I can't see it because I'm like blocked. But,
it's so tame, mate. It's so pathetic. Like, basically, I just did a tweet where literally it wasn't even as spicy as this show would be. I just said, like, basically, if you're Knock, I hope you're just savoring this time period because, like, at some point you're going to be on a normal team again in the future. It's going to be back to reality, isn't it? Because I'm with you, Dom. The problem with this, I'd say that I can say he isn't playing better. He is playing really well. He's playing about as well as it's possible he can play. It's just when I watch with the eye test, I don't believe it's actually real. Like, essentially, he's like one of those weird people on YouTube that have figured out how to like use like fucking contouring and like eyeshadow to make fake abs or something. It's like, look, they look sick. The abs do look, and the depth, if you turn that angle, yeah, it does look great. I can't lie, it looks mega. And he's lifted up something that does say like, oh, it might be a cartoon weight, but it does say like 150 kilograms. Like, well, he's doing it, Tom. He's fucking killing it. I just don't believe it's real. The problem is like, basically, I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be the meta swap that a lot of these champions do seem to go into his wheelhouse right now. I'll say that. I'd be interested to see a mid lane meta swap. If he went to MSI, I think he'll get brutalized. I'll just say it. And the last thing I'll say on the Nook Shio angle is, even though people are going to think it's to hate on Nook, I actually just think the Shio guy's way better than I originally thought he was. I think he's the player that's sort of like grown on me over time when I watch this squad. So just a good team. The problem is, though, if you have a player like Adam who just has obvious idiosyncratic flaws in his game, you have someone like Nock sooner or later is going to have to play a different meta in mid lane, and it's going to be a different. Like, eventually, it just feels like it's inevitable. They can't be the best team for real. But if they are now, I'll give it up to them. It's basically like if you watch the other big leagues, there's always one team like this. Like in LPL, maybe EDG was going to be the best team, maybe. But you look at the lineup and you're like, they don't really have the players you think are going to win the MVP, win the final, dominate someone in the playoffs. You know what I mean? So if BDS can get past all that, I'll tip my hat. And right now, like, fuck it. I'll give credit as well. I did say this group looked really dangerous for them, but they've fucking won it. So I've got to give it to them. Jensen, what do you think on the team in this sense? Like, are we hating on some of these players? You actually think these players are good? Where are you at on them?
I think they're just good in this very specific meta at this very specific point of time and where all the teams are at the moment, right? Because I think that for some of the teams in the LEC, they're still trying to figure things out. So this actually reminds me a lot of IG at the start of the split in the LPL, right? Where they were just scoring all these mad wins over some of the top teams and they were having all these cheesy shenanigans as well.
Well, it's pretty much only EDG, but yeah.
Yeah, it was EDG, but at one point of time people were asking, is IG in conversation with the YSKM guy being up there, right? So I would say that is one analogy I draw to. The other is RA, right? RA in 2021, not the current RA. Current RA is terrible. I'm talking about the one that almost went to Worlds, right? Where it's the same idea. They
Which
knew the
Fofo?
identity. Was it Fofo? I remember they just played a lot of Jinx Zoe, right? The idea was that Jinx got Prio, that secured the first Drake, then Zoe would secure Drake's 2-3-4 for them, and that was kind of the general game plan that they had over there. So it's the patch is something that is definitely in favor for them, and with how short the LEC split is at the moment, where they split it up into 3 splits, right? So there's like winter, spring, and summer now, and because of how short spring split is, it's like you can just be really good on a certain series of patches, or you can just be really good for a certain point of time, and then that can actually make you deceive the eye test to a lot of people, right? So I would say that this group is actually a very strong stylistic matchup for them, right? Like the way that they play, they're very good at taking control of the map because of the things that we talked about. They're very well coached, and they connect support and jungle on the initial move into this. So against a Koi, which is a 3-lane team, they're naturally going to dominate them, right? Because they're always going to take this free space, and Koi is always going to have to give up the mid push. They're always going to have to give up the jungle control when BDS walks into them. Now the problem is, is like what Dom is saying, and it's not just the way that Labrov is casting his spells. I'm just watching his movement in these games, and he's not holding hands with his jungler like some of the ways that the good support and jungle players in the LPL do, or even if we go to Astralis, then we talk about that a little bit as well. So in this idea of strong side, they're good at creating a strong side through connecting this manpower advantage and using it to control the jungle. But once they get control of the area of the map, they tend to split up a little bit more. And I really don't like what Labrov is doing, where sometimes I wonder if he is just being pulled around by his teammates too much, and he's walking to his mid laner for no reason, he's walking to his AD carry for no reason, and then Shield now is Shield has to take a fight without support being behind him, and that's something that I think is a little bit one of the areas where if they play against a team that is going to attack them in this regard, like a G2 or a Vitality, where they would struggle a little bit more.
Yeah, I think there's other issues with the gameplay, but then also I would say that to Thorin's point about Sheo impressing him, I've actually felt the opposite, where I feel like Nuck is the player that's grown on me, because I really thought he was going to struggle with this patch specifically, because it felt like BDS before, part of the way that they would compensate for their issue of never playing around mid too much, like in the regular season where like Adam was playing to his carry champions, and even though Sheo would grief Adam sometimes, he was going top a lot, he was making sure the bot was always stable, was they would always just slam Azir. They would play Azir almost every single game. Every time it's up, they're playing it, and Azir is really self-sufficient, and you can really just do everything on Azir. Not only are you self-sufficient in terms of like you don't need help, you don't need push outs at certain points, but then also on top of that, you have the ability to set up ganks. So if there's ever an angle, you could trade flashes. You scale well, so you don't need a lot of resources in order to perform. But I felt like in these games, like I was really surprised with the fact that Nuck was just out laning Larson on Cassio versus Ori, because normally I've been told that's like or from what I've observed, it's been a very Ori favored matchup. Now, I do think that this is probably one of the points where Ori is the weakest in comparison to Cassio in like all of history, because if you think about other metas, you didn't have Roa coming in, you didn't have Seraphs being like this OP at the same time as Roa, so now you don't really have like as much damage on Ori to deal with the Cassio. But in terms of how the early lane was played, I don't know how Larson was forced to take like such an early bad base where Cassio was just pushing him out. And then in the game number 1, I thought his Syndra play was actually pretty good. I mean, even though Sheo, I think like there's time, like he looks like he's playing really well in a lot of the games, and he is playing well at portions, but then he does a lot of things that makes me think that he's not really thinking about the game. So for example, he's in the first game, he's playing like the Vi into Trundle, and I think that Trundle is literally the worst pick possible here. I think it literally just makes the game a complete 4v5. I mean, you're lucky that they draft a tank top, or it's just going to be completely miserable for you. So I was really surprised to see Sheo see a Trundle and then be like, yeah, this is the game where I'm going full tank Vi. I would think that in that game when he has like a Jarvan on his team, when he has, I believe that was the pentakill for crowning the Zeri game, I would assume that would be just one of the best cleaver like angles that a player could see, but for some reason he didn't want to take it. So I was a little bit like, I don't know, there's sometimes where I see things like that and I'm like, it makes me feel like they're just not aware of all the things that are going on in the game, or they're kind of just going through the motions.
The Best Damn League Show period is brought to you in association with Freeze Pipe. Now, I may be known for spitting hot fire on the mic and irritating fanboys online, but the last thing I want when I smoke cannabis products is to be coughing, irritated, and annoyed, right? That's where Freeze Pipe comes in. You take the food-safe glycerin chamber, place it into the freezer for an hour, and it will cool your smoke by over 300 degrees. That's colder than a T1 fan's heart after Sunday. Now, I'm known to prefer Freddy 122 teams, but whatever bong you prefer, or bubbler, dab, or oil rig, Freeze Pipe has you covered. Check out their website. They have them all there. Right now, they're running their 420 sale because obviously Americans put the month before the day. Obviously, we know whoever invented the day system in America definitely enjoyed cannabis products. Look it up, pretty based. They actually were into a lot of hemp stuff. So obviously, they have all the different things on sale there. If you want to get a discount, how about supporting Last Free Nation and using our code LFN at thefreezepipe.com for 10% off your order? What about then, like, it's funny because this storyline is repeated from last split. It was the same fucking storyline, which is you can somehow never count Koi out. Like the moment you've seen them play a game and you're like, actually, you know what? Fuck Koi. They're not that good and their players have fallen off and they're definitely going to lose the next. Oh, what's that? They've just inexplicably won the next game against the best player. Well, maybe they're good again. Oh, no, wait, they fucked me again. So, like, you can never, here's the thing, you can never write them off, but at the moment you also can't go all in on them because they're on some like fucking Pokemon shit, mate. Like you don't know what turns up. Like, are they Magikarp or are they like Gyarados, the fucking evolved super version? So I don't even know, mate. Like in that G2 series, they looked really good. Like Larsa was just fucking clapping claps, basically. It's just like a good series all the way around. Yeah, G2 played like shit at times, obviously, but then they go and play that series against fucking BDS. Like that should have been a banger series. That was so underwhelming. What are you at, Dom? The eternal Koi fucking paradox of are they actually good at League of Legends or not? How are they doing it?
I mean, I think that they like have the ability to like perform better than you'd expect, but like that better than you expect is maybe at like around like a fourth best team in LEC level instead of, you know, before where when they were playing their best, it just felt like they were the best team in the entire league and they obviously ended up winning a championship. So I just feel like there's still massive disconnect with this team. I mean, also the way that the game has changed, I think has been really bad for Malrong, like with the removal of lane experience, where you can't just walk to lane anymore and gain experience. If you don't know what the change is, you used to get 40% experience now, or used to get 75, now you get 40% experience when you share waves early game, when you share lane experience early game with the jungler, which is really bad in comparison, first 14 minutes. And I feel like Malrong, he just never ends up playing.
By the way, could Riot in their history make it more obvious none of them actually like the jungle role or ever made the jungle role? It's ridiculous. Like every change is just like, and then of course, this a while we'll fuck jungle as well. Like what? Like this, every change is fucks. Yeah, it's mental.
Well, it's one of those things where jungle will always be solo queue if you're able to just get a bunch of free kills. Like at some point, if you have to be on play. Actually, it's not at some point. It should be on players to track the jungle and not give him free kills. If you see the jungle full clear towards your fucking lane, you should be able to avoid it. It's like it's been in the game for 13 years. But what it is that players are just too stupid. Like they don't know how to fucking manage waves. Like especially if you think of like the average solo queue players, you can run into challenger players that are one tricks that don't know anything about like how to control their wave. They just know how their abilities interact with other champion abilities, and they're able to play situations really well.
That's no way to talk about Adam. He's a professional player, and he's in. Sorry, you're talking about someone else.
I mean, literally, it's pretty much that. So as long as people like jungle's an annoying role, right? You're playing your lane 1v1, you do something stupid, the jungler comes and kills you. Like it's an annoying role to play against. People don't like that in general, and the people that have to suffer are the professional junglers for this. And I feel like jungle has just became like the solid 4 position in league now. Like if you wanted to go by Dota terms, like 1 through 4, like where it's not that you're weak and like you can carry the odd game if you're like Bo versus 113 or something, but most of the time you were just getting like less gold, less experience than the 3 like main carry parts of the team. So I mean, it is what it is, but I think that this really hurt Malrong because he used to sin like a motherfucker, and then he would just catch up like, oh, I did finally get that kill that I've been waiting for 3 minutes. Now I can push your lane, and we're all good. But right now, you actually need to clear your camps. Like, not only do you need to clear your camps, to evolve your fucking pet. Where if you look at a lot of these games, like Marong is just so far behind on pet stacks. Like I think there was a game where it was like 20 minutes and he didn't have his pet evolved yet, which is like crazy because that's also your smite damage evolve. So even though I think he ended up stealing a Baron with like his 900 damage smite, it's like, what the fuck, bro? He's 900 damage smite to 1200 damage smite. Plus you just miss a bunch of free stats when you don't have it evolved. So I feel like the whole way the game has changed to make you actually have to clear your jungle camps, but then also you can't just catch up massively off lanes. I think it's just really, really rough for the way that Koi wants to play the game and the way that Marong wants to play the game. Because when you look at him, he gets these leads. Like in the second game versus BDS, for example, he gets a lead. He gets a free kill on Wukong. You're like, nice. Wukong with a free kill pre-6. That means he's going to be like earlier to his Divine Sunder. Massive spike. They'll be able to play through this and be able to get a sizable advantage. And obviously Wukong is one of the best scaling junglers in the game, especially in competitive play. Like if you get a huge flank, you could just win the entire game alone. But then you look at the way that he plays, and because he just gives up so much, he just never is ahead of the curve. He doesn't have the early Divine Sunder. He doesn't have the early smite upgrades, which obviously would help with his durability in a lot of these fights since he's going green smite. And he's just playing the fights kind of weird as well. It never felt like he was much of a like team fighting jungler. He was more the jungler that was going to just play for like ganks and try to get like a lot of kills for his teammates and then get carried in the team fights later on. And with the way that the game is evolved, it just feels like Koi is never going to be able to recover from this. They still haven't found a solution for this problem that has essentially existed all split.
Yes. Basically, the short version is, if people remember years ago, like Malrang's the person that they invented fucking catch-up XP for, so he could just do eternal ganks, basically. Because, mate, that's the thing. This guy reminds me, I actually used to have this problem, Jensen, which is when in esports, I got to the point where, like, the income is, like, way higher than it used to be because the industry got bigger and bigger and bigger and the events got bigger and bigger and bigger. I actually took years before my brain and my mindset ever clicked over, though. I had essentially, like, a poor person's mindset because I came from the era of esports where you did like 80-hour week and you got like fucking 10,000 euros at the end of the year. And you were like, brilliant, yeah. And it's only because there wasn't like much of a tax rate you had any money at all. And so it took me years to do basic things that people are going to think it's like a meme out of a movie. Like I would actually go like, oh wait, yeah, I could just buy socks before like the hole gets in it. Like, yeah, I just have a bunch of socks around actually. Or just go to the shop and go like, why don't you just buy loads of bottles now? What do you mean? I only need a little bit. It's like, well, you're going to buy them eventually, so just buy them now on off. Like, oh shit, yeah, it does make sense. I had to do that, right? That's what Malrang's problem is, dude. Like, look, I know he was on that fucking damn one team where he probably was the most starved jungler of all time. Because one, I bet the second he went for a single camp, they were like, you ain't Canyon, motherfucker. And then two, he was between Khan and Showmaker. So he must have just been the most drained jungler of all time. I get that, but it's like, homie, you aren't in prison anymore. You don't have to guard your food like this when you eat it like Malrang. It's okay. You can just sit out with the rest of us. Because, mate, it's like he just doesn't know how to ever spend money on himself. Like, he'll just be at the end of the game, like you say, like, that's me, Malrang, hardest ganking jungler in the game, hard hat on, just going to work, boys. It's like, you can just fucking, you don't even have to play that way anymore. Like some of these champions, you don't have to do that.
Yeah, he goes to a different shop than everyone else. When he bases, like the shop, the person that's operating the shop is like some like random street merchant that like actually is just fucking con artist, and they just scam him. It's the
porn stars, guys. Malrang goes like, yeah, I need a mythic item, and they're like, best I can do is ruby crystal and 2 wards. He's like, well, what can I do? Off to the lane again.
Yeah, no, it's so fucked up. When you look at like his games, like you look at the games that he's playing, right? He's playing versus Triple AD, and like anyone else is like, Triple AD. Well, Tabby's is one of the most cost efficient and best items in League of Legends. And it was recently like kind of buffed in a way because it didn't interact the way that you thought it would with certain abilities. Where previously you would get full damage. Now it mitigates part of that damage as well. You look at him and he's like, yeah, I'll take lucidity boots as Wukong in this game with 3 AD champions. And you just want to like blow your brains out when you see it. It's like, man, can you just build normal items? Like, I wish that Marong could just play the game and then I could just buy the items for him. Yes. Like, I could just do the math. Like, it's like, okay, you came home with 1,400 gold. Okay, well, that'll be a Sheen and 2 longswords. Like, I could just help him with what's going on because, man, like, this guy actually gets griefed constantly. I don't know. Shopkeeper has it out for him.
I like the way Dom's whole plan is. He just needs to be at the 1950s housewife who's managing the checkbook. Like, no, okay, honey, you brought in 1,100 this time. That's not quite enough that we need for the item, but if you can come back next time. And he's like, I'm just going to take these wards. No, we need that. Remember, we're saving that for when your mother comes. Like, fucking.
Yeah. Oh, it's really fucked up.
By the way, where are you at on that, Jensen? Because here's the problem. I will say it is essentially like a whole sideline on this show that we do just slander Malrang. Even when he was really good, we sort of low-key still slandered him anyway. And quite frankly, the basic running theme on this show is it's like that line from Breaking Bad of like, you can't keep getting away with this. And we actually, essentially, I don't think he really has. Like, it's sort of been exposed eventually. Where do you sit on him? Because I've always wondered, like, in theory, he's supposed to be this Korean jungler. He's been a champion. Like, how good actually is he as a jungler, in your opinion, Jensen?
Thing is, it's he's definitely very idiosyncratic, right? Like he definitely has that one very specific style. Karsa is a very close example to his that as well. And there are these junglers who were just happy ending the game on ADCS, right? And then I think there was like some game Karsa played like Poppy ended the game on ADCS, something like that. It's similar to Marang as well, right? And I think that it's kind of the reason why Rogue or Koi did so well last year as well, because that's the type of jungler that they need for the style to function. This is a team that is constructed around it. We're going to have very strong laners, and then we need a jungler to support those strong laners, and then we are going to play on 3 lanes, play for farm efficiency, and then win team fights later on in the game once we skill up to the skilling team fight point in the game. Unfortunately for them, I think that paradigm has kind of shifted away, and then the teams that have been trying to play more proactive games who believe more in the realm of like, hey, let's draw for a higher level of agency so that we can play a more proactive game, perhaps around Rift Herald and things like that. Those are starting to reap rewards to a certain extent, whereas for Koi, they're still kind of stuck in this paradigm, and I think that it's not just that Marang probably is not because the Marang doesn't want to change. Is that I think the way that this team plays as well doesn't allow him to do that. And I think changing the top lane as well, this style works extremely well when you're winning across the map, right? Your bot lane is push, your mid lane is push, your top lane is push, and then there's all these options that you can have as Marang, and you go in there, you're going to find a kill and things like that. But now when you are stacking your own economy in the jungle to help your top laner, you're not getting a kill. You're just helping him crash the wave because he put himself in a bad situation. He played this lane under par. Then all of a sudden you're just going to be extremely far behind. So it's one is the way that the team style plays, and two is that they had a downgrade of sorts at the top lane. So that's the reason why I think Marang seems to be struggling so much. The bright side for Marang though is that Trimby, I think could be if I were to vote, he would definitely be my first team all pro support, right? Is that the term they use for it?
What you mean? You mean for the whole split so far, he's number 1 for support?
Yeah, from what I've seen so far, because he's definitely this guy is putting Koi on his back, right? He and Comp, the way that they're playing lane, the things that he's doing in team fights and things. I think Trimby is definitely somebody who's
they did get solo killed a fuck ton of times in the regular season, but
they did get a bit fucked up in lane sometimes.
Yeah, but when Koi does well, it's because Trimby is able.
Fair enough. Okay, he might be the X factor, sure.
Yep. It is for them to do well. It has to be Trimby and Comp doing well in the bot lane, right? And when they don't do well, I think this is where this team kind of falls apart as well. So I think that with what's happening at top lane, I think this is not going to be Koi's year. That's the TLDR of it all. I don't think it's
go on.
I don't think things are looking up very well for them, and I think that all these teams that are playing to very actively control the map is going to catch the fact that Marang and Trimby aren't really coordinated in the mid game. It's going to catch the fact that this team is so greedy and they always like to play in 3 lanes as well.
Yeah, the one thing I would say on the Koi angle is, let me think, what was it? It wasn't about Malrang, was it? Let me think. Oh, it was about the Shigenda, that's it. Here's the downside, is if I phrase it this way, you actually get a sense of what they've struggled with Shigenda. If you're someone whose whole fucking MO is supposed to be, he's a carry top laner who can play like mechanical champions, then if the best play you've ever made in your career is just you using a really small hitbox to avoid being hit by a tower, I feel like your career wasn't sick enough. You know what I mean? Like, as I just said, remember, let me just check the notes again on what you were supposed to be. Mechanical champion carry player top lane. Like, all the fucking, where's the Camille highlights? So even though Shigenda has been slightly better this split, it's like, that does say something, Shigenda. Your best move ever was just going like basically your best move was like when someone tries to use MS Paint and they don't know you can just zoom in and make it really accurate. They're just trying to do it like with their wrist, like a boomer, like, oh, I went outside the line. Like, that's the best thing you've ever done in League of Legends ever. And spoiler, this is really evil, but I'm going to say it. Probably is going to be the best thing you're ever going to do in League. So enjoy it. Like, it's brilliant. I'll bring it up, but the only problem is it takes 5 seconds and then it's over. But enough about how Fly fucked up Rogue. But yeah, go on anyway. Go on, Dom.
Well, I mean, what I was gonna say about Shigenda is, it's like he wants to be a carry top, right? Or like his champion pool is supposed to be this carry top. He was the guy that's supposed to be playing Fiora, Jax, like, which are completely viable champions, by the way. If you look at some of the, like, I'm going to say something that's going to blow people's minds, but I think LPL is slightly higher competition than LEC, and you see people like Bin be able to play these champions, always able to play these types of champions. They're getting banned all the time. Like, these are champions that are completely viable within the meta. And when when Koi tried to play them, they obviously weren't able to figure it out, but they gave up on that shit so quick. And now Shigenda is playing all these champions that are self-sufficient, but then also like supposed to be like kind of lane dominant. But if you have Malrong as your jungler, the whole idea is supposed to be that he is like the ultimate dog. He is the most dog jungler you'll ever find, where he'll be like, oh yeah, I just did full side red clear on red side of the map. You know, I have 3 bot camps up, but you need some help, or you need me to play around your lane because you really want to abuse this one timing at level 3. Sure, man, I'll do it. I'll be 2 levels behind so that you can do this. And we never see Koi go to that. We never see Koi try to play any type of style that incorporates like heavily playing around Shigenda in his carry champion pool, which tells you one of 2 things. Either they think that he's just not good enough on those champions to actually carry the game and it's not worth the investment, or it tells you that the way that the team works, he doesn't trust his teammates to actually be able to put him in the position where he can carry these games. So on one side of it, like, there's clearly a disconnect between what he was sold as and how they ended up using him. And we've essentially seen it since like the 5th game of winter season. In the season portion, they were like, nah, never mind, fuck it, like, you're on Nard duty. Yeah, whatever, you could play like Renekton or something. Maybe that's the most carry champion you'll get. We're never seeing the Jax again. We're never seeing the Camille again. We're never seeing the Fiora again. Like, there's just no way that they are utilizing what his supposed champion pool is.
Indeed.
In my head, I'm just picturing the Koi hype trailer, like if they were to do the like in-house hype trailer, and it's like in the bot lane you see like LeBron is hitting all these hooks, and then Combi's there is getting the pentakill on the Caitlyn, and then it's like Larson with the shuffle on the Azure, and Marung is going there, he's ganking mid, he's ganking top, and then when he goes to Sijanda, he's just like walking in between 2 turrets, and that's it for his highlight reel, you know?
That's it.
that image is now just stuck in my head.
And at the end, Freddy122 just goes, Azir. Then that's it. Like, that's the whole team hype trailer. Like, that's the best of Koi. You're not going to believe this team, guys. The most exciting team to ever come out of Rogue. That's the joke in it. It's the only angle you could hype up. That's the only problem is, listen, I know, Dom. I understand I have like a perverse sickness that I like these players that essentially are just defined by how boring they are. Like, even the things they're good at is just boring. Like, I should just do what I've always done is the LPL's like my mistress, where I just go there to enjoy all the ridiculous players. I always loved the fact that the junglers were just doing mad dives and didn't make any sense. Like, fuck it, just go for it. Why not? It's more fun, innit? Like, I just enjoy that part because they are just boring as fuck. Koi. Even at their best, you don't really get super hyped, you know. That's how you know, by the way, to spin it on the G2 angle. G2 definitely fucking opened the door to get beaten like this, mate. What the fuck happened there? Just right before MSI, even G2's going to blue balls us and make us think they're going to ruin the whole event. Come on.
I mean, what I always say is that Koi is like EU Gen G. Like, they're like the macro, like very like try to extract resources from the map. They want to have like high gold. You know, at every moment they want to be playing on 3 lanes. They want to make sure that they're just getting every minion that spawns, etc. G2's just like the European version of T1, where they look really fucking good when they're ahead. When they are snowballing a game, it's like, wow, how could they ever lose? They're so much better than everyone. And then when they get into like these close games or they're slightly losing, it's just everything falls apart. You know, like, there's no intelligent macro plays. It's almost like they just don't know where they're going to find their angle, and they just kind of just do nothing and, you know, slowly lose out because it feels like the way that they see the game is when they're ahead, they can see all these little advantages and they're like, oh, we could win that play, we could win this play, we could win this play. But then when you're losing, you don't have all those options. You don't have all the ability to just win like a bunch of different plays that you go for. You have to be very calculated about, you know, when you take a fight, on what power spike, on what Drake, or like, do you have to trade, you know, a side of the map for an objective? Like, do we want to make a creative play inside, you know, the jungle or something where you you see them play for like a Drake or something, you set up Vision on the other side, you get a pick when they try to reclaim Vision near Baron. There has to be something that you do to try to come back, and it feels like G2 just doesn't have any of those plays in their playbook. And it might be because they were winning too many fucking scrims. Maybe Romain was right. They just won all their fucking scrims. They never had to play from behind, and then they just weren't able to figure out any of these ways to play from behind because they never had to do it.
By the way, just as a quick aside, I will say, if someone out there watches some of the other shows on our network, like the Monty and Wolf show with Monty and Wolf, or Power Spike, where Dom and obviously Monty and the rest are talking about stuff, right? If you are low-key a hater of like LCK aficionados or Monty, or especially Wolf, then not only like Dom on his stream, but you've basically had the best like 6 to 9 months you could ever have as a hater, because what happens is every episode of these shows is like Wolf and Monty, like, and here's another reason why T1's actually probably like the best team to ever play any game ever. They've sort of like Gary Kasparov, Magnus Carlsen reinvented all of the game and the history. They're almost like, you know, like fucking, they're so far ahead of the game. They're like Paul Mooney, or like they just do the whole thing. Like they just throw all that. And then the joke is every single episode after like the finals is like, I don't know what happened. Fucking T1, what happened? Like, yeah, because they just lose every time.
Oh, people
so,
don't.
I almost get like schadenfreude off it, dude. I just laugh so much.
Well, the thing is, people don't like, because, you know, like normally I'm not somebody who's just like, that tries to take a super unpopular angle and just like beat it to fucking death, because I know that it's just not good for my career to like do that type of shit.
That's my style. Yeah,
that's your style. That's I talked about this on stream. This is something that I respect about you, is you just like actually don't give a fuck at all. Like, you don't care if you're just getting fucking everyone is replying, be like, fuck you, fuck your tweet, I hate your tweet. You just like almost get off on it in a way. Whereas for me, it's like, you know what? I'd prefer to not have that like every single fucking day. The one team
mate, when Selfmade waded into that, and he's like, "What the fuck?" It's like, mate, this is just a world game. Duck and weave, boy. Duck and weave. You're gonna get a few shots in yourself, you know. I'm basically that nerd kid in the modern day. This is why it's a good job I didn't go to school now. I would just be that kid on those like phone videos, like one person is getting the shit beat out of by 50 people in a corner. Like, luckily that wasn't a thing when I was a kid. It's just one-on-one combat, so it's all good.
Or if I have like the controversial opinions, normally I'll just like state them more like from an analytical point of view without like all the fucking hyperbole and the energy and the fucking anger. But T1 just brings that shit out of me. So like when everyone's just telling me that the fucking best team, and I'm like, wait, what about like this game? And then every time they lose the game, oh well, they were just trying out drafts versus Hanwha Life. And then you look at the game, it's like, what the fuck were they trying? Like they were just playing like their normal shit. Like what the fuck were they? They weren't trying it. They just lost. Like, oh, we're just trying some draft. Oh, they just drafted some meta champions. Nice. And then you see this and you're like, oh, so they just got
T1 Copium is crazy, isn't it? Like they almost are just like, they actually just like saved strats at Worlds finals to win the next Worlds even harder. Like they're like on that shit.
It's next level Kobe. It's like, yeah, actually maybe they lost the final because second seed in MSI might allow you to go through like play-in phase and level up. It's like, what the fuck are we talking about here? Like, can we just like acknowledge what happened? So I'll go through the whole fucking year of like me being like, yeah, like I think this is an issue, this is an issue, this is an issue. Obviously, I'm like a fucking T1 hater. I wear that shit publicly, so that every single one of my opinions just written off is like, yeah, Dom is just delusional. He just hates T1. So when this happens, like I have to just fucking celebrate it. Like I get so much joy. Like if you were to tell me what are the things that give me the most joy in League of Legends, number one would be OMG winning. Number two would be T1 losing. And number three would be NA like winning any type of competitive game.
Fair enough. Okay, I had a wholesome end there. That was actually a wholesome end there. Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, so those are like that's my fucking tier list there in terms of like what brings me the most joy. So at times like this, I mean, if you go watch Power Spike, I'm just fucking going off the whole time because I'm like, I fucking told you, motherfuckers, that this was possible. Like last episode before that, I go on a 5-minute discussion, or I mean, I guess you could say rant about why I think Gen G is actually better than, or like could win against T1, why they're a better matchup than KT was, even though KT looked better in the previous series. So that's neither here nor there. The main point was on G2, and I think that they suffer from similar issues where they really just need to be ahead of you. And the way that they draft, I feel like I'm not confident that they believe in their identity, similar to how like T1 had this massive draft bust at the end of their series, where it's like they're drafting Braum and Sion and all this stuff, because T1 was the team where they wanted, or G2 was the team like T1 where they wanted to play mega aggressive, right? They wanted to play like all these types of lanes. It wasn't the same type of champions. It wasn't like AD supports, but it's like they wanted to draft Nautilus with a Kalista, Samira, a Draven, something like this, and they were going to shit on you bot lane, and they were going to path towards bot. They're going to let BB just do his thing up top, and they were going to exploit this side of the map and just run you over, just run the entire game. And as times went on, I feel like they're playing less of that. Like, what is the two Varus games versus Koi? Why are they playing Varus twice? I feel like Varus is like the stable, self-sufficient champion that's like good in lane. It's never going to be a problem. It's playable in multiple different drafts. It's playable in multiple different ways. You could play it into tanks with AP. You could play it with, lethality and poke into long-range champions that are squishy. You can play on hit if you need more survivability, if you want to build shield bow, things like this. But when I'm watching these games, it's like they do that in game one. It looks like a G2 draft. You're like, oh my God, they're just going to fucking destroy Koi. They're just going to 2-0 Koi into the fucking ground. Like, look at all this stuff. They have the Pantheon. You don't know where the Pantheon is going. Is it a top laner? Are they going to randomly run it mid? Could they even play support? Could they play jungle? It's like, that was G2's whole thing.
Yeah.
They would pick things like Gragas. They would pick the Kled super early and you didn't know where it was going. They would pick Jarvan in the finals and they ended up flexing it to support. They had all these angles that I thought were really interesting about G2. And then in these like do or die games, like it just felt like they lost that. Game one, it looked like a G2 game. Game 2 and 3, it's just like they're just kind of doing nothing. And if they don't end up winning their lanes hard, if they just end up, falling behind early, it just feels like they're just waiting to lose.
Oh, by the way, just to finish off the T1 fan point, by the way, I will just say one thing I do actually enjoy. I also just it became like a sickness. I just started to like enjoy it too much. Is I like the way if someone's a T1 fan, right? There's a certain type of fan base, like on our shows and content, we've sort of anthropologically examined what fan bases are and how different fans from different regions react. And, like, for example, if people will know from the RLs, French and Spanish fans react very differently to if you mention any of their players versus if you're just doing a normal like LEC discussion about who's good and who's not. They have specific players to go crazy for, right? Basically, one of the things I love about people who are T1 fans is any fan base that's had too much success, there've been too many championships, they've had too many great players, they all get mad delusional where like essentially they can never come back down as the results come back down and just have like a real discussion about the flaws of the team. So the joke is when I make a tweet about T1, my tweets to a T1 fan are like LSD. The second they even get the tweet, it just instantly dissolves on their tongue or their ear in this sense. And immediately their whole reality changes and they're not even in normal baseline reality because I could just do a tweet, Dom, and it'd just be like, this is kind of the way the latter part Faker's career's gone. He is still a great player, but he's never been the best mid laner for years and years. He relies on the team aspect to make it. If I do that right, they won't even reply to any part of that. They won't come in like, well, I disagree. I think sometimes he does play like carry mid, or they won't come in like, well, it's just the way league's played now. Like the map is more, but instead what they'll do is they will literally be just off in another reality. They'll just come with pure cognitive dissonance. They'll just say some mad shit like, so you just hate on a guy because he's legendary and was around 10 years. You're like, what the fuck are you even talking about? Like, you're like, bro, how did you get from my tweet to your thought? Like, what's the line here? And in a straight line, is it? It went all like this. Like, I need to know what happened in the meantime. Like, what? It's almost like I'm dealing with their, like, they're right. It's like they think they're writing in their diary. Like, I've just always hated him. And like, what the fuck are you talking? I'm not reading your thoughts. Like, what is that? So I just find that part so wild. Because as you said, certain players, Fakers won, T1 as there's not even allowed to be a discussion. It's just people just going crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, weighed in it.
This is something I thought about. Think about that Griffin team in 2019 and how quick everyone slapped the fucking choker label on their forehead. And they're like, fuck this team. All these guys are chokers. Yep. Tarzan, Viper, fucking Chovy. They're all chokers. They couldn't get it done. That team was way less dominant than Team 1 regular season, by the way. They were like second in 2019. Yeah, they were fucking second place. They were 13-5 in the regular season. Compare that to like 90% win rate in LCK over multiple splits. And then look at like the results and they're like, well, I don't think that T1 actually choked. I think it was more of just, Genji just had an overperformance. The thing that I hate about T1 fans, Thorin, is not that they came after me for that fucking Crackdown episode that we deleted with Bwipo years ago after, Bwipo.
That never happened, but yeah, sure, whatever. Yeah.
It's not because they sent me death threats and they said they were going to like rape and kill my girlfriend and a bunch of those accounts ended up getting deleted. It's not because of that. What I hate the most about them is that they feel like they've had the success of T1 because they're a fan. Like somehow they're above you in terms of like analysis. It's like, in what world is like I fucking put my whole life into analyzing League. I'm waking up at 3 a.m. I'm talking to fucking pro players. I'm doing my best to try to make sure that I am on top of the game. And then just because they like a team, just because they like T1, they're like better than everyone who doesn't like T1. And so like somehow the T1 success says something about them. Like they've somehow, it just shows how smart they are about the game because they like T1. That's the part that I fucking hate the most.
I know what you mean. They act like they didn't just support T1 and cheer and go like, go T1 in Korean. They act like they actually bought stock in T1 and they're all billionaires now. And it's like, see, I win, didn't it? It's like, no, because I've also never understood that angle, by the way, guys. If you're just a pleb, if you're like talking shit on Dom, like, oh yeah, you're saying that about Faker when he's like won Worlds and you never even went to Worlds. It's like, yeah, but what did you do?
Go to Worlds.
Like
what have
I
did go to Worlds.
Also, that's true. Yeah, also that's not true. But yeah, basically in that scenario, right? It's just that's a famous idiot thing that people obviously say.
Yes.
In that scenario, right? When people say that shit as well, what they don't realize is that should apply to you, the fan. Then logically, like you weren't even a pro at all, so by that logic, doesn't Dom beat
then you can never say anything to me ever about anything. Then if we go down that route, where you need to have success. Like if you want to say, oh, well, you were only a top jungler during this period, it's okay. Okay, so if you were never a top jungler during any period in your region, then you should never speak again ever on anything League of Legends. Let's do it. No, exactly. Let's do it. I'm fucking down for it. Like then, look, this is the thing. The people that could use that never use that on me. Like it's not like fucking Blabber and Xmithy and the people that did have like better careers than me ever are like, no, shut the fuck up, Dom. You should never. It's always the random fucking fans. It's the plebs that always do that shit.
Yes.
Fucking crazy.
Because to me, the thing that doesn't make sense is like in the moment they say that, where's the self-awareness? Like, guys, that's like Dom's just eating some normal steak. Nothing wrong with it, just some normal steak. And as he's eating it, you lean in the window, literally take a massive bite out of a dog turd, like, and go, you know, Faker has Wagyu though. It's like, I mean, you're right. Who gives a shit at that point? Like, you're eating actual dog turds. Like, you know, like, yeah, Dom doesn't have the Wagyu, but I think he wins this one, you know, I'm just saying. And so it's at least in the middle. Anyway, yeah.
We got to get a few rant on every single show this week. I just can't control it. Every episode, every show, every stream, I just have to go to
it's all good. Right, okay. Right. We'll cut it there, editor. We'll just throw it out. We'll read it back in. Right, so we're going to back from dog turds through T1 through G2. Oh, we're back in the LEC.
T1 fans eat dog turds. Never mind G2.
We're back. The thing is, but the problem I have with this koi result, basically, I'll say it short like this, is I just don't believe G2 will ever play like that again. I think this will be the slap in the face, the water in the face. They're going to wake up from this. They'll be way better, in my opinion. I think they're going to murder that low bracket. Right. What about, obviously we didn't talk at all about SK. Thoughts on SK?
Oh, I want to get Jensen's points on what I said about G2, about their style from behind, their identity with like the Kalista Samira not going towards that, flex picks, all this type of stuff.
Yeah, what do you think on that?
I actually think that G2 is a very interesting team because when I was watching them in spring, there's a few things to unpack over here, right? I think definitely the whole like, oh, we trained them wrong thing with them overwinning all the scrims is definitely something that is a part of the conversation here, because when you watch some of these plays, when you watch how they're having success in winter, they're winning these fights 3v4, 4v5, right? Because people are just uncoordinated in their approaches towards them in the side lanes, so they just are more decisive and they collapse and suddenly they pick them off and then it's a 3v3 now, or is even a 3v2 sometimes, and they're just winning these fights that based on the numbers on the map, right? You're fighting 4 against 5, you just shouldn't be winning. And naturally over time as teams get better, they're going to get better at these style things as well, and that showed in the Koi series as well, right? Where I think it's definitely a scenario where the Kali can be bot side and then they see, what was it, Vine to Wukong, or was it Jarvan? I think it was Vine to Wukong, and then they just decide to pull the trigger and go in on the Wukong, and they get absolutely blown up in the team fight because they're fighting the 3v4. So that's definitely that element of, okay, we had this lead in the earlier stages of the things, and we definitely have very brilliant players in the form of the G2 lineup. So that's something that they definitely were getting away with, and perhaps that even trained them to start doing the wrong things as well, where the intuition in terms of these are winning fights, it's not because they're actually winning, it's because these teams have not learned how to coordinate these elements of map control yet. So that's definitely the specifics of where I think that's where they sort of suffered from their own success, right? And in terms of Hans Sama, now this is something that with regards to the Varus, I think it's very interesting, right? Because I was wondering how much Varus he actually plays, because I also found it very strange that he was picking Varus, and I went to his Games of Legends, and it turns out that his most played champion throughout his career is actually Varus, which is rather surprising, right?
Wow,
because you would actually think that it would be something like Draven or Kalista, and those are the two champions that he's known the most for. So probably the conversation in draft, I can't say for sure, but
it's something about his Varus play, by the way. Right. That says how unconvincing his Varus play has been. Is that like he's most played Varus, and people are just like, yeah, no one's scared of his fucking Varus. But continue your point.
Yeah, but it's probably Dylan Falco, the coaching staff or whoever's coordinating draft is asking, okay, we need bot prio over here, which is a very important element to the way that they want to play, right? Because they want bot prio to be able to either control the Drake or get first rotation on Harrow, or to enable first support move for whatever 2v2 or 3v3 mid that they want to play through it, which is a very important element if you want to play these very high agency aggressive stuff, right? Bot prio or enabling support move through either natural bot prio or a creative jungle gank is a very core tenet of playing this style. So probably they're looking at that and saying, okay, let's go for the Varus. Varus-driven Kalista, they all achieve that in the laning phase, but how these champions operate in the later stages of the game is slightly different, right? As driven as Kalista, you're just there, the team fight happens, you throw your spells, and you just hit and you do damage. As a Varus, now you have this very big ultimate that's actually extremely key to the team fight, because a lot of times when you're playing these style of team comms, the Varus ultimate is what I call the first of the last spell cast, right? It's either the first engage spell that you throw out, and then if the team knows that that is the approach, then that's the follow-up of your Varus ulti. Then everybody has to be in position for your Varus ulti, or it's the last spell that's thrown, and then it serves as a disengage of sorts, because people can't really walk forwards into the creeping tendrils that's spreading forwards, right? So that's that's the thing about Varus. It's very different from the way that Draven and Kalista play. So even though he does get the lane prio in the later stages of the game, you watch him play this Varus, and it's like, this is where it feels a little bit less convincing, despite it being his most played throughout his career itself, which is which is one of the funnier things that I came across when I was researching this topic. So I still think that this aggressive style is my personal bias is the correct way to play League of Legends. It's the whole the battle cannon analogy is that if you have two guns, right? One gun only has one bullet, but you will always shoot first with it. Which gun would you choose in this scenario? So if they want to choose the gun that always shoots first but only has one bullet, they better make sure that the bullet hits. And I think that Koi is kind of that natural enemy, because the way that Koi plays is that it ensures that they only have one bullet. But against some of these other teams who wouldn't necessarily draft so much into this very efficient scaling, we're always going to play super greedy on 3 lanes, so you really have to take the windows against us kind of thing, you maybe have 2 or 3 bullets and you still shoot first against a lot of these other teams as well. So stylistically, I think that I would still say that G2 is favored against, should have been favored against Koi, but the way the G2 plays, especially if it's an incomplete product, they still do have a rookie jungler in the form of Yike as well. Is that if you make mistakes, this style is very, very punishable. And I think that's the reason why a lot of teams, they tend to shy away from this, is because they don't have the fortitude to say, oh, okay, we are not that comfortable with trying to play this high agency style where if we go against a full scaling team comp, if we make one mistake, we instantly lose the game.
That's how you know, by the way, Jensen is deep in the fucking nerdling aspect of League of Legends. The fact he would even just say it as a connective tissue line. That's one of the funnier things I found while researching. Like, all right, it's like fucking, well, you're just in all the Excel sheets. Like, Jensen's funny things in League of Legends this week. Like, you're not going to believe, guys. Oh, wait, let me get to the punchline, guys. This one's a good one, right? You know, Cassiopeia. So I love it. I just love the idea. He's just entertaining as he's doing it. It's good. You should find your own way. The thing I want to say is, I have one last take on G2. Sure. So I should have done this earlier, but I was waiting. I set myself up. This is the moment I just need to give a message to the G2 fan base out there. Now, I know obviously over the years, you've had different messages sent at you. You've had Carlos's message, which some people would say has soured now. Some people see him as sort of a false messiah in some ways, and regret associated with him. Not me, but, I'm just one of the ride or die homies. Then obviously you had that whole angle where that guy Fosty thought he was involved. Spoiler, I think we'll be memory holing everything about him, just like he attempted to memory hole certain things about history himself. Believe it or not. Yeah, exactly. Just a few minor things that people in Germany, I don't think are that upset about anymore. So you probably get away with it.
Wait, you know what's crazy is the kid who was the French kid who said
oh, the one who got banned. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Who said subhuman in English?
Yes,
got lost his whole career.
Isn't that mad?
And yeah, he got hurt more than Fosty. Like Fosty's just back, wild, creating memes on social media and all that type of shit. When this guy is he's denying that, or I don't know if he was denying history as much as he was just saying that he thought that Hitler was actually a good.
So much stupid like that, yeah.
Which like he's like, oh yeah, like Hitler actually did like a lot of good stuff for the economy. It's like, yeah, like if you're like a tyrannical dictator and then you just like start killing other people and enslaving them and having them do free labor for you, that's pretty good for your economy, I would say. So like the ideas were crazy, but somehow what happened to that guy? The kid that just said, he said, Oh yeah, this guy is subhuman, which is something that all League players say, by the way. It's just like dog, subhuman, like cancer, like all these things people just say. He just got completely like fucked and we never heard from him again. Nice. Cool.
He's done. He's in a black site somewhere, but getting wrecked by Riot Light. So anyway, what I was going to say was the message to the G2 fan base is this. I know you're hyped about Yike. I know it's cool when a rookie comes in and they do really well, but you're doing the flackhead thing again. And it's really fucking irritating to anyone who watches League of Legends and isn't just a fan of G2 esports. Like, you're doing the thing where you think that your player, the rookie, is easily the best. And then magically, when they have a bad game like this, and it's obvious they weren't the best, you spiral because you can't handle the idea a better player could be on a worse team. Like, look, we can debate whether like El Yoya's in the mix or what, but like people, even though Jankos' team sucks, he's just better than Yike. I'm sorry. Like, the eye test tells you that. All analysis tells you that. Like, because this was an example of the series. Like, if people are going to think I'm hating on Light, just like they claimed we all hated on Flackhead, like, bro, if he goes to MSI and has games like this, he's just going to get fucking murked. There's some really good junglers going to be in this tournament, guys. Like, he's not even a bad player. Like, just like the Flackhead example. In fact, he's even a better player relative to his role than Flackhead was. But give me a break. Like, this was like one of the rare series he had to play real League of Legends as a jungler and like navigate from behind and the team fight and stuff. Like, every other game he's just snowballed to fuck, isn't he? Like, I can't handle it, mate. Like, it's going to be my trigger because basically they're just going to claim he's the best, mate, until the end. Like, I always say this, the way you know that everyone was full of shit about Flackhead last year is they never mention his name now. It should be insanely conspicuous. He's not in LEC if he was that good. Like, I actually do. We've discussed this before. I think he should be in the league, but they were making him sound like he was better than fucking Upset, mate. Like, the eye test never told you he was. The eye test never told you that.
They were saying explicitly.
It's the same shit here again, though. They just have to think Yike's number one for some reason. Who knows why? I don't get it, mate. The rest of the team's awesome, guys.
I mean, he
don't all have to be the best, do they?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's really good for a rookie, but I mean, it does seem like he is extremely lost from behind. Like, he doesn't know which plays are good to go for, and it just feels like a lot of times when, I mean, look, that's why I keep on saying the Heretics angle. Now, imagine if he was on fucking Heretics instead of Jankos, and you're always behind. How are you going to look then? That's what people don't understand about how ELO held you get when you're in those bad teams, when everything is losing and everything looks like a bad play. And then you have to think about from the jungler perspective, when you're losing, you also don't have vision around your lanes. Like, every jungle camp you fucking take, you're just in hell. You're like, oh man, am I going to die on this camp? Where's the mid laner? He pushed the wave. He's missing. Oh, I guess we have to give up this. We have to give up the other thing. We have to give up bot turn. We have to give up Herald. We have to give up Drake. Like, all these types of issues just end up arising. Like, that's the one thing that I keep on saying about what Jankos was able to do this split, because my God, like, I mean, when you have winning lanes, the game is a completely different game. Like, you're playing with unfair pieces when you are a jungler on a winning team.
No, absolutely. Right, let's do it then. Fuck it. The last team is SK, and then we'll talk about the other group. It's more interesting. I didn't have that much to say about this one. Like, SK in general, they've obviously fallen off during the split anyway. But like, the problem I have is this, basically, Jensen. I do think a lot of what made them really good in the previous split was just individual player strength. Like, Exakick did look like the best ADC. Remember, we had no Upset back then. Obviously, fucking Marcoon was doing a really great job early on. Like, you had the odd pop off and so, like, in general, you know, they had players that had good performances. Thing is, to me, they're just a way less dangerous team now, mate. Like, I'm not scared that this team's going to like knock everyone out and win this group. Like, I'll be surprised now if they get out the group, obviously. Where are they at for you? Is SK still a good team? Are they still a top LEC team for you, Jensen?
I mean, we talked about BDS if the Cinderella clock was strike 12 and they turned back into a pumpkin. I think SK has already turned back into a pumpkin already. Right. Like, this is a team where there's no magic to it. I'm watching the way they approach the map. It's very outdated. We're going to push through mid, and then we're just going to try to out-team fight you. There's all these opportunities that they're wasting. And on top of that, I don't really think that the players are going to punch above their weight in terms of what they can bring out in the lane itself. It's more of a they'll show up, they'll play a game. If people play bad against them, they might steal a series, but it's on the opponents to lose the series against them. I'm not going to expect SK to show up and say that, hey, these are the reasons. If I look at any SK series, basically I'm thinking not so much about how SK is going to win, but ways the other team is going to self-sabotage and lose to them.
God, there's surely no way you're at all in on SK now. Like, this team's just fucking done, aren't they?
No, I mean, they look a lot worse. I mean, Exakick is no longer like this beast. I think Joss is playing a lot worse as well. And that was their whole thing before, is they had this weak side top laner. Jungler's pretty good. You know, mid lane is stable, and then their bot lane is just smurfing on everyone. Where even in like series, for example, like the Mad Lions best of 5 that they played, it looked like Exakick was just the better AD carry in that series. Like, he was just the better player in that series. And I mean, I think that Exakick has kind of proven the point that we always have on rookies, where the progression is not linear.
Yes.
Like different metas are going to change and people are going to play worse at times. And Exakick, I think, is just having a much worse split than he had last split. So that's what it is. That's one of your win conditions, like you just don't get to win.
No, here's the thing. I know what you mean by that, because like the joke is basically the person everyone will remember if they watched my shows back then, who was the worst defender was Loco. Like Loco just had to see everything through that lens of the rookie. He basically was the original guy, Jensen, who would have gotten tricked like all the LEC coaches to just permanently sign in the RL talents, because he really did think like it's not even that he thought it's just that it's a way his brain automatically went as a pattern. He thought if you played really well as a rookie, he'd be like, well, since they were a rookie, they could get better. So what if next split they're like half better again? And it's like he actually didn't realize it. I mean, he doesn't understand deep like fucking mathematical concept. He didn't understand he essentially was explaining like exponential fucking improvement on splits, which if you just stopped for a second, you'd realize, wait a minute, like basically no one in history's done that ever, pretty much. Like I can't think of anyone who just got that every split. I mean, and so the problem was he really never could see that like obviously they could just get worse or just be the same again. You know, like he would always get tricked into that angle.
Look at people that were extremely good when they came in, like El Yoya, for example.
Sure.
Like his rookie year was arguably better than the year he's been putting together right now. So like I don't know. I just feel like this is just one of the things that we always end up hearing with rookies, and I wish that people just stopped doing that every single time a rookie pops off, because I mean I feel like Exakick now it's like no one really talks about him and people just kind of ignore that he's been playing a lot worse, but for sure, if you're watching the games, like he is no longer dominating bot every single time up in CS, gets a solo kill. Like, I mean, it's just not that anymore. And I feel like they've actually went away from a lot of the picks that actually got them there in the first place. So, I mean, you got to say it, right? Like Yuumi nerfs ended up taking out this team quite a bit. Like when they were getting Yuumi for DOS, they looked a lot better. They were willing to play things like the Yuumi Lucian, for example. And now that they're not getting Lucian anymore and Yuumi's out of the game, just feels like they have less tools to work with.
I'm also just going to throw this out there, just as classic Yuumi player disrespect, that whenever you're also one of the best angles is you just play Yuumi. So I'm talking to you, Mercer, when you were in Misfits, talking to DOS now and SK. Spoiler, that essentially implies like they don't need you to play League of Legends. They just need that bullshit champion in the game. So I'm just going to throw that out there. I'm not really sure that's bigging you up. That's the draft identity.
Yep.
Let's go to the other group then, because here's the thing. If any week, Dom, was time to fucking crow on all these little haters and naysayers, it's this week, isn't it? Because not only did your beloved G2 lose to Koi, remember, like I just said, in an anime, Koi would be the most boring character that none of you like, even though he's probably like really like, not a bad character overall. Like, not only did your beloved G2 lose, but Vitality smurfed. Oh, they didn't just smurf, guys. Like I said on Twitter, bro, Upset is just the best Western League of Legends player. Like, does he ever have a bad game? I'm watching like
the game wasn't great, but
it wasn't. Really it wasn't great, but like it wasn't like terrible even. Like, mate, his floor is just ridiculous on his game now. It's so fucking good. Like even sometimes they even do actually like semi fuck the game up, and he just carries it no matter what. It's ridiculous. The guy's just so cracked now.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it wasn't so much about Upset this series, but I mean, just Bo put 113 so far down into the dumpster that it's gonna take months for him to crawl out. I mean, it's so funny because he was the main person that 113 was like disrespecting, where he's like, yeah, like, you know, I think I'm top 2. Like this guy is like not that good, because he had one game where he played really well, the Viego game where he played into Bo. But when was the last time you've seen 5K gold leads and 5 levels on a jungler in a competitive game?
That might be one of the craziest gaps of all time. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, this was, I think, the hardest I've ever seen a jungler get shit on in the series. And it was like, it was like he was getting shit on at every point in the game. He walks into the jungle level 3 into Bo, and Bo's just fucking out playing him level 3, and then goes on to beat his ass for like 25 minutes straight. This game, these games were fucking insane. I mean, this was some like Chinese TikTok Lee Sin shit that we ended up seeing here.
Yes. Where you at on this, Jensen? Because if people don't know, this is the whole reason I was hyped that Bo is in the fucking West. Like, he should be an LPL player. He's fucking sick.
You know, if I had Doctor Strange powers, right? If I have the ability to go back and like change time and change the course of history itself, it's not gonna be any of those big things. I'm such a hardcore DoMB fan. The one thing I'm gonna change is the fact that Bo got basically excommunicated from China because of all the match fixing bullshit, right? Because when he was playing those games, he looked so insane, right? And people talk about like rookie players like having like, oh, they look like kind of good and they have all these type of things. Bo was the real deal in his rookie split in the LPL. You looked at the way that this guy played, he was better than I would have said, and I'll die on this hill, that I think it was better than Qian. It looked like this team would easily win Worlds with just Bo, DoMB, put 3 wooden boards in the rest of the teams for top AD and support, and that team was going to win Worlds. That's how good I think the things would be here. And I think he's got a similar setup now. Now that's of course you need more than wooden boards because the previous ball lane and the winner split were kind of wooden boards, right? And even the winner split, I actually thought that this was going to be the superior team over G2, but there's a little bit too many weaknesses in the early game in terms of lane, so they couldn't come true with that. And I think that even now with like bringing Upset in this, the whole question of like, okay, so now you guys have the super team. Who do we play towards? Do we want to play a more jungle carry kind of strategy, like towards more perks, towards more of mid jungle with perks and bow being the focus, or do we want to play more towards like Upset and having Upset being playing the Zaris and all these hyper carries as well? I think that it's flexibility is good, but it also can be a curse, right? Especially with the super teams, especially when things start to go downhill, and then it's very easy to erode the trust amongst the members. And definitely some of the games right now it's not the cleanest. Maybe it's a comms issue, like the whole Vitality comms thing. I think it's a little bit of a meme. I actually feel that it's kind of passive aggressive the way that the LEC broadcast keeps like bringing it up as one of the factors. It's definitely a very interesting narrative point, but it's one of the factors where I think that okay, this is one of the things that they definitely have to fix for us to say that this is a team that can contend with the international teams, right? But Bo is definitely the real deal. He has the right mid lane to set him up as well, and I think that Perkz is somebody who has the veterancy to know that his job on this team is not to be the superstar. You're not going to see the Perkz LeBlanc, you're not going to see the Perkz this year. You're going to see the Perkz Annie, Gallios, and stuff like that. And this is how this team is going to succeed, right? Or the Renekton's, you just get to push and help him out. Perkz is going to do his DoMB cosplay to either put Upset or Bo on a pedestal for them to carry the game. And I was even say maybe Photon can even be in the conversation in particular matters as well. So this is a team that definitely has the depth to be meta-proof to a certain degree, and I think that this is a team that I'm the most excited for to do damage internationally, but they have to get there. So I don't think they're complete product yet. There's still some like issues. There's still some mistakes here and there, but it's definitely something that I think that this is a very exciting team, and it's something that it's a team that I'm excited to see play at MSI if they do make it.
By the way,
go on. the hell scenario. I mean, it just if you haven't followed all the championship points, you don't want to get into the nitty gritty. The main hell scenario is you have to pray to God if you like EU that Mad Lions doesn't end up beating Fnatic and Astralis. Because if they get fourth and G2 gets it together and win, it's fucking doomed. Mad Lions is going to MSI. So that's the main thing that people just need to be aware of, that if you like Vitality, you got to hope that either G2 doesn't make it and G2 doesn't get it together, or that Mad Lions just completely falls apart in these best of threes, because it's yeah. I mean, it's pretty
do you
scary
think would this Vitality beat G2?
I think so.
I think so. Yeah, I think so too.
Because that's the hope, right? The hope is they make the final, and then they just win the final. Yeah.
And G2 is so hard to analyze because I feel like every time where I'm like, oh, they've got it together. Like they've went away from the the more the slower paced drafts, and they've went back to what their strength is, which is playing fast with a lot of flex picks and really snowballing games. As soon as I feel like they've figured that out about themselves, and they have two games like the ones against Koi where it's like it ends with a fucking Vi first pick, and you're like, oh man, Vi first pick for G2. Well, I guess we just fucking lost again. So it's hard to read G2 because I feel like they could be so much better with just like somebody reminding them who they really are. I mean, that's what Perkz did for Bo, right? That's what he said in the interview, that one of his biggest strengths was that he reminded Bo that Bo was Chinese. It's like, wait, you're not European, you are Chinese. Play Lee Sin. Like if you play Lee Sin, like you are going to absolutely smurf on the champion, and then he just looks fucking like a different player.
By the way, the only thing is though, Dom, I know what you mean about the nightmare scenario, but the good news is, even though I'm not a fan of everyone on Astralis, I actually think I can rely on them to beat Mad Lions, mate. Like, I think they're going to save us all, and we'll have a chance that Vitality just goes and wins. Then it'll be the two teams we all need. I know it's a little bit of hopium, a little bit of that seeped in there, but I just think Mad Lions looks fucking bad, mate. Like, I know, look, they're probably going to beat Fnatic. Fnatic, like, is the team that, like, borderline whether they should have even been here. People are getting too gassed off that, like, 1 week they had at the end. Like, yeah, it looked good, but that doesn't erase all the previous weeks. Like, they still have mass flaws. So, to me, like, they might beat Fnatic, but I think Astralis is going to get them. Jensen, who do you have coming second in this group, mate?
I actually think I think it's actually going to be either Astralis, most likely 70% Astralis, 30% Fnatic. Fnatic, I'd say, is kind of like a
Oh,
dark horse
okay. You're
in
giving
this group.
Fnatic a chance. Why?
Yeah, because I mean, I'm not like a very big fan of the way they're playing, but I think that is the whole like um cynical side of me coming in and saying that this is a team that I think they're riding a little bit of a high right now, with the change in coaching stuff, with the upswing of certain things. Like I'm just watching the Legends in action and things like that. The vibes of the team is definitely good, and when the vibes of the team is good, is something where they definitely can outperform the eye test, right, in terms of what we are seeing. So I think that the new coach, right? I think it's something that he's exactly the one person in the world who's the right man for this job for Fnatic at this period of time. So for everybody who has worked with,
Listen, I know that's just something people say, but why did you phrase it like that? Like you made it like a fucking hype movie trailer. Like the one man in the world who could do it right now for Fnatic is in the building coaching Fnatic right now. Like why specifically? What's so unique about him that makes him fit this style? Like, come on.
so let me set this up a little bit, right? So everybody who has worked with Humanoid, they always talk about how Humanoid is this guy. He's like he's just chilling and things like that.
Yeah.
Even when I worked with Humanoid on the Splice roster and things like that, he's like
Oh
this
yeah, you
very
did.
chill
Yes, back
guy,
in the
right?
day. Yeah.
Like he doesn't really participate in things like that. But this is the one guy because he's from the Czech Republic as well, and he's like great friends, right? He's Frieza's brother. He's great friends with Humanoid and things like that. He's actually involved in Humanoid. He's friends with Humanoid, and he is actually able to get the playoffs Humanoid to perform
Oh, see
in
the
the other
angle,
parts of the
right?
season as well, right?
Okay. So he's the
So
humanoid whisperer.
yeah, he's basically the humanoid whisperer. He's the person who
Right.
can get that
Right.
MVP level humanoid who was I think it was
Yeah.
MVP of which year? 2021, right? Of the LEC. He's the person who
What's
can
the
coax that
secret?
out of him and
I don't think he
get the
was, but yeah, go
What's
on.
the secret to getting the most out of humanoid?
Apparently just being from the same country and just, I don't know, fucking saying something in his language.
be
Just
able
like,
to
all
speak
right.
Czech,
Like
right?
Tomorrowland tickets, maybe just slip them to him, just right under the table. It's like, all right, like you have one ticket if you make playoffs in spring split, and we'll get you a +1 if you end up doing it in summer.
I have to say though, as somebody who worked with Nightshare previously, is that this is someone who's, I mean, Freeze is his twin brother, right? He's somebody who has been around pro players his entire life. He has seen what pro players are like, and he understands them a lot better as compared to a lot of coaches who don't necessarily, who haven't had experience as a pro player or had limited experience as a pro player as well. And I think that one of the things that from a coaching standpoint that he does very well is that he's very good at getting buy-in from people and bringing a team together, and I think
Okay.
that it's definitely paying dividends as well. So not only is he a humanoid whisperer, maybe he could even be the reckless whisperer,
My
and
God.
if they can do
Okay.
that, and if he can do that, I think that it's like once again, Legends in Action, very limited scope, right? But from the way that they're doing things, you're saying the involvement that these players are having, what we're seeing on camera and things like that. I would say it's not just I wouldn't say it's just for the show. I would actually say that having seen the way that this guy works before, it's something that he actually has been able to genuinely, authentically create. Right. The only person I feel that's maybe not really there, not on the same page, is maybe Oscar Rinen, and I think that that's probably one of the bigger concerns on this team as well. But just having the whole friendship is magic thing can maybe get this team to overperform whatever status that they're in, and then they Mad Lions right now. Why I'm not high on them is that I think they have identity crisis. And then against Astralis, there's some very fatal flaws in the gameplay as well. So if Fnatic, they can then overperform, win a few team fights, have a strong showing in lane. This is a team that definitely can still make it. I wouldn't say Mickey Mouse it, but rather what's the term? MacGyver it. Rather sneak their
MacGyver
way,
it, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
MacGyver.
MacGyver it, right? They,
Yeah,
they,
we
they
get
can
the
definitely
concept.
MacGyver their
Okay.
way into the next stage through the power of friendship.
Okay. Fair enough. By the way, just two things. One, as an aside, at least he actually did sort of say MacGyver. One thing I never understood about Americans, Dom, is why when they say McDonald's, do they say McDonald's? It's obviously McDonald's, you idiots from Scotland. And they're like, I don't get that one. Why do they say Mick? What's that even mean? That's not even how it's pronounced. Why do Americans just change the words? Come on.
Well, Australians just say Mackers, so
That's true. They have the Mackies or whatever. Yeah, true. They
yeah,
have all that
Mackers.
shit. That's true. That's not a great one. By the way, come on. I'm not buying that Dom has any angle where Fnatic gets out this group. Come on.
No, I don't have any. I mean, barring like Omega chokes, I mean, I feel like the Mad Lion series, maybe they can win it. I mean, Astralis is just a good matchup versus Fnatic. I think that's the biggest issue is that Astralis just has a good matchup versus Fnatic with the way that they played the game. And they could make the game so much easier the next time. They get like, it feels like there's not really an answer. If you just ban Lissandra and you don't let Humanoid have a free Lissandra angle, I feel like Leader's champion pool is just really, really scary. That being said, I think that there was some issues with the way Fnatic prepped. I just think that you don't ever give 113 Sejuani, like ever. I just think that it enables the team way too hard when you consider the fact that their mid laner loves to play AD, like melee mids. That's his whole thing, is that he plays melee mids. So, I mean, Fnatic shouldn't make it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm completely sold on Astralis like being just bulletproof, like not being able to choke or not having, bad series, because even though 113 got shit on by Bo, I also think that he was playing worse. It wasn't just that Bo was in insane god mode and 113 was playing his best. If 113 plays like that versus another jungler, I'm not sure that they won't still be pretty far ahead.
The other reason also I am not worried about Mad Lions is we're also acting like Mad Lions is going to play well. Like, these guys can play like fucking shit sometimes at the moment. Like, mate, one thing I can't handle is, this, I've always been out on Kazi, mate. It's like maybe the first split he joined the LEC when we were online and he was Mad Lions, he was pretty good. But like, aside from that, I've just never bought it. Like, to me, Kazi is one of the mysteries. Like, it's why even though I've had loads of people who've been in his teams, I always essentially keep asking the same question. Like, but what does he do that we don't see, on the camera? Because he's never worked out with the eye test. And this, like, if people didn't see this series now, what a fucking shocker some of this shit on Lucian was, mate. Like, the guy's just not that good. I don't get it, mate. I don't get it. So, like, in a weird way, it's why when this team was good, I just gave a lot of props to the coaching staff and El Yoya and Niski, basically, because, like, I just don't buy it. Like, this bot lane is never going to be that good as a bot lane. And Harzy just isn't that good a player, mate. Like, who gives a shit? Here's what I don't get, guys. There's loads of really good players in LEC. Why do I have to care about Kazi? I don't. So I don't give a fuck. To me, he's just a whatever player. I don't know how he keeps getting on these teams, mate. He must just have the fucking most next level interview technique of all time or something. I don't get it.
I mean, he's also likable and people want to play with him.
Sure.
That goes far in LEC. I mean, it goes far in LCS as well. So,
it's wild.
It goes far anywhere, to be honest.
Because, like, just do this exercise, guy. Take the exact same Mad Lions team, but give them any of the good ADCs. Like, fuck it, you know what? Even go and get, like, Jack Spectre or something. Mate, they'd be a way more dangerous team. Like, that's the problem with this team is, like, the term is just toothless. Like, sometimes they just have games where it's like, oh, they're going to win this one. Like, I don't know, from the draft they win, or they win from the early game. Like, I don't know. Do you believe in Mad Lions at all, Jensen? What's the good about Mad Lions? Am I missing some angle that's actually legit about them?
Okay, I think Mad Lions, they're definitely better than they look right now, but it's not going to show in this split, right? Unless there's like some miracle that happens within the week, I don't think it's going to show in this week. This is another team that draws, that believes in the one bullet, but I always hit this school of agency, right? And it shows in the draws as well. They're playing a lot of this big compositions, things that are very good at taking control of the map, and then playing around on two lanes as well. And they definitely have the right players to facilitate that as well. But some way somehow I thought that when this shifted into going away from Enchantress, that Mad Lions was going to be really strong. But that hasn't really happened, and when you watch the games, you see Hylissang's on his own pages doing his own thing. I mean, there's the whole chicken on the skateboard thing, right? But now we're not scoring points because he's doing tricks. We need you to lay eggs, right? And Hylissang's just his dad doing a triple. His dad doing the triple flip. His dad doing the reverse 180, but he's not laying any eggs, and that's what they really need him to do right now. He needs to go and pair up with Elioya and lay some freaking eggs. Right.
No, he's laying some eggs. It's just in the kill and assist column. That's where the eggs are.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. So that's
Jensen like that one.
Right
nice.
That's the issue right now with Mad Lions. I think they're going through an identity crisis, and they really need to kind of figure it out. Is it some internal issues where there's some issues between some of the players where they're not talking things through? Like, once again, I'm not privy to any internal information, but just looking at the way that they play, looking at the way that the players are communicating, if I were to cover the nameplates, it's almost like I'm watching Excel play.
First of all, what an outrageous diss to just weave in there. Like, it's almost like I'm watching Excel play. The way he even hit the emphasis perfectly. Like, it's almost like I'm watching Excel play. drops the mic completely. No, but the other thing is as well, mate, you know that famous meme of that like 1960s Batman cartoon where it's Batman talking to Robin and slapping him in the face? Like when I watch their drafts, it's like I want like Max fucking Robin and he's just like Lucian Nami, and then I'm just Batman slapping him in the face like, what the fuck are you doing? Look at your team, you idiot. Like, why is he drafting that every game? Why are we pretending like we've got a really good bot lane? Like, what am I missing here, guys? Like,
I mean, I think it's because of the upset factor, because upset is so good on Lucian Nami, and you also don't want to give him like, it's just, what do you draft, right? Because you're not going to beat him. If you draft Xayah into Lucian Nami, you take the other side of that matchup, you're probably just going to get your shit pushed in bot lane the entire fucking game. And then, like, you also don't really trust Karzi on Zeri. You don't feel like he's going to be a Zeri player who's going to be able to, you know, minimize deaths, get through the lane, like even CS, and then just become a monster in teamfight and completely carry. So, yeah, I mean,
I'm with you, Dom, but here's the thing.
Bad series.
Obvious counterpoint to that. I agree. I definitely don't trust Kazi on that, but I also don't trust fucking Nami Hylissang, mate. I'm sick of seeing that. It's just garbage. Stop playing that champion. You can't play it. It's fucking shit.
yeah, I mean, it's
just nothing in
one
it.
of the Namis of all time.
I know.
It's one of the Namis.
What's the point? He's played so many now over the last year or so. It's like, me, how many games do I have to see this? Come on,
I'm just recalling this game where Hylissang's playing Lulu, and he just runs up into the opponent's red buff and starts fighting the opponent jungler. It's like somebody else shows up and he just gets one shot as a Lulu. It's like, this is just insane. Like, I don't want to see Hylissang on, like, I don't care if Pyke's not a meta. Just drop Pyke from every single game, right? I do not want to see an Enchanter game from Hylissang. Yeah.
No, 100%. I mean, I think that there's definitely angles for him. I mean, he should just literally take the Kaiser route. Like, maybe every now and then you get like a Lulu game in there or something, or if like, you know, there's a really good Lucian Nami angle, you take it. But most of the time, you're looking for the recon every time it's up. If you know, it's getting banned a lot first time, okay, just take the Nautilus most times. You'd rather have Hilly play the Nautilus into the Lucian Nami almost every single time in lane. He's the guy that can do what Mickey X does. He can land the Miracle Hook through the minions and get the fucking one kill that will completely alter the lane. I just feel like he needs more agency in these games. Like, him just being a passenger has never been what has worked for Mad Lions.
Oh, and by the way, since we didn't talk that much overall about Astralis, I also just think, mate, if Astralis actually gets out of this group, which I think right now I would favour them to do so, it's going to be so sick, because like the implications of what it could actually mean for like LEC going forwards is like, think about this, like Leader will just be actually established as like just a good player now, probably going to get to play more than just the odd split. Kobe will actually, just like Crownie, get the real status of like, he's just one of the best ADCs, like flat out, like forget the old name value. Like, these guys are the kings right now. They're the best in the fucking role. Like, there's another thing. Because of the Leader factor, people mainly focus on that. It's the storyline within Astralis and all these wins. But like, Kobe was there when they didn't have Leader, who was really good, and he's just really good still, guys. He's another player where almost every game I see, he's just playing really well, just having great games, constantly back to back. Like, props.
Well, I mean, just think about this split alone, right? Like, don't think about Winter. Think about this split alone. In what world, what has Hansama done off those first two Draven games where he just gets like Draven for no reason and then he just smurfs it completely and then he never gets Draven again? Like, why do we have to say Hans is better than like Upset? Why do we have to say he's better than Crownie? Why do we have to say that he's better than Kabi? It just feels like, you know, this split, these guys have just stepped up and they're just more comfortable in the meta and they're playing better. I think that there's a lot of things that these guys are able to do. So primarily when I'm looking at it, they can play the Lucian Nami, which is good. Like, being able to have a good Lucian Nami. I mean, we saw what happens when you don't have a good Lucian Nami from Karzi, right? Having the Lucian Nami and you have like the Zeri in your pool, that's huge. Like, they're adapting to the meta way better than from what we're seeing of G2. So yeah, I mean, I think Karzi, obviously he's been struggling. Kabi's just been playing super well. I mean, he just dominates them in lane. And the thing that's crazy is like when you see him obviously play against Reckless, he's better every game than Reckless. Yep. That's crazy that he's just been better multiple games in a row than Reckless. When Reckless was the guy that was like, he was the guy in fucking 2018 when Kabi
also,
was
Dom, don't you find it crazy? Like, if people don't know, it's so rare that players like this late in their career get like a bunch better and become like more consistent. Normally, like, you peak in the middle of your career, obviously like a bell curve almost. Like, it's actually I'm struggling to think of many players that got like this good at the end, you know, like now.
No, what I actually think happens is you start as a rookie and then you just get consistently better throughout all of time. So that when you get to like the age of like 90 years old, you're just the best League of Legends player that's ever existed.
Basically, here's the joke, because this actually does perfectly work. Essentially, now I know why Loco's into Bitcoin, because he essentially thought of all players as like cryptocurrency that was always going to the moon at all times. Like, to the moon, to the moon. I bet. Oh, sad. Poor Loco. The only time, here's all you need to know. Even though he's not involved in esports, I have no reason in esports to ever think of him. Every now and then, if there's ever news like crypto markets crashing, I'm like, I just sort of look like 1,000 miles out of a window, Dom, and just go, I hope he didn't put it all in. And then I just turn back to whatever I'm doing and go, there you go. That's all I can give you, local thoughts and prayers, mate. Thoughts and prayers.
Jeez.
Right, anyway, let's rewind it all. Right, here's the one thing I want to say is, I've basically been waiting this whole split to see the best of 5 between Vitality and G2. So I just hope, first of all, I hope I'm going to get that, because obviously what sucks now is G2 is going to have to start in the lower bracket and all that crap, right? So that's not great, but I'm hoping they're still going to get there, because if that's actually the final, I think we're going to have a really good final. I think what's cool is that everyone can have a justified reason as to why it can go one way or the other. And also, aren't those the two? Like, ultimately, because of the championship points thing, you also sort of need Vitality to win the split now, because as we've said, it's bad if Mad go. It's not going to be great if Koi go either, if we're being real. And the real problem is just the way the points work. They're almost locked in, as we said, if you get a certain threshold. So that's the one downside. Do you have anything else to say at the end, Jensen? Is there anything you're looking forward to in the playoffs, mate?
I mean, if we get a best of 5 between G2 and Vitality, that series is going to be such a banger. You're going to see some LPL go graphs in that game where one team is like 10k ahead, and then they find a way to almost lose the game, but still win it in the end through some crazy backdoor or something, or maybe they just lose anyways. And you're going to see all these crazy skirmishes in the jungle as the teams like really jostle for map control, even though there's like no objective spawning. So like people are not so accustomed to. Every time I watch a VOD, I can just skip like 5 minutes. Okay, next trick's coming up. What's going to happen here? Was that a team fight? Oh no, they just backed off. But when G2 and Vitality is the whole perks meme, it's like men die on the battlefield, and that whole copy pasta and things like that. I expect a series that's going to be full of action, and I think if that's going to be the finals, it's going to be one hell of a banger.
Well, esports is almost done with CSGO, and now esports is done with Jensen Goh.